This is the Raw Project, where wisdom and encouragement meet authenticity. Hi, welcome to the Raw Project, Real Authentic Wisdom. We're at episode 7, and I would just want to thank you all for all your input and your comments. It's really encouraging and it's helping us to keep pushing forward. So today, before I get started, actually, I want to give you a little announcement. I did start my class yesterday. Remember in episode 1, I said I was on my way back to college after a bazillion years. I did start my second college class this semester, and it's chemistry. So I'm freaking out right now, but I'm going to do my best to press through. So thank you for your encouragement in advance to me pressing through to chemistry. Anyway, so this is episode 7, and today's episode is titled Thoughts. And the reason why I'm taking a little detour from the last 2 episodes is because I actually had something happen. And sometimes when you have something happen to you, it causes you to rethink things, or it makes you have to rethink things, right? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about thoughts, because it's in your mind where everything gets established, right? Whether you have good thoughts about yourself, or you have bad thoughts about yourselves, or bad thoughts about others, or what have you, everything starts up here. And when you are going through a challenge, it's a real big deal to get your thoughts straightened out when you're going through a hard time. And so here's kind of the raw story. And I'm going to be really honest with you and vulnerable. So just, go with me, work with me. So last week, I had an awful week. And it was in part mostly to do with a couple of different situations. They weren't necessarily applying to me. It wasn't me personally going through these situations, but they were people that are very close to me were going through particularly hard situations. And I just felt so overwhelmed. I felt sad. I felt like I was questioning everything. I was like, why is this going on? I felt like, that it was going to work out. And so it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm a person of faith. I believe in God. And even in that moment, I was struggling in my faith. I was struggling in my belief, because I saw these situations happening to these people that I love and care so much about, and I'm walking through life with, and I don't see the answer, even though I've spent time praying for the answer. And it didn't come, or it didn't come the way that I expected it. And I tell you, it knocked me flat. It really did. And I'd like to say that I was able to pick myself up within a day or 2 and get back on track. But I must say that I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling in this arena, in my thoughts, because what happened to these people that I care about was a great, great disappointment. And maybe it's even deeper than a disappointment. I don't know what's deeper than when you're just truly disappointed, but maybe it's deeper than that. But I just felt so bad, because I had encouraged them so much. And I just said, I just had told them, it's going to work out. Things always work out. And I just was trying to build them up and talk with them and encourage them through it, and I was believing with them. My hope was really high. And then it happened where it didn't work out. And so now there's all these questions, and there's all these thoughts that have plagued my mind. And I'm talking about my response. I can't even describe to you how they're feeling, but I just want to talk to you about my response to it. Was that I had all these thoughts plaguing my mind, and it was so heavy, and it felt so dark. And I was like, what am I got to get a hold of myself. I got to get a hold of my thoughts. I've got to get a hold of, how I'm feeling. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it the first day. I couldn't do it the second day. I couldn't do it the third day. And I'm telling you this story because sometimes we look at people and we think, oh, they got their life all together. Everything's working out for them. It's great. And what have you. And, if you look a little closer, you'll see that everybody's going through something. Everybody's dealing with some sort of issue. And so am I. I'm dealing with issues. Yes, I'm giving you real authentic wisdom, but I have issues too, and I'm dealing with these things. And so I was overcome by this great disappointment in the lives of these people that I love. And then I was trying to overcome my thoughts because immediately my thoughts went, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that wasn't going to work out. I don't know why I said it was going to work out, because it didn't. And now look, it's just a mess. And on and on and on and on. And before you know it, you're spiraled down in this hole, and you're like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? Now, what I'm not saying is that you can't be sad, because, sometimes I wouldn't let myself be sad over it. I would actually feel guilty for feeling sad about a particular situation. I would feel like, oh, if I'm sad, then that means that I don't have faith. Or if I'm sad, that means that I don't believe that good things can happen. And what I've realized is that's not the truth. You can absolutely be sad. You can cry. You can have grief. You can have all those things, and you can still have faith that things are going to turn out, or that everything happens for a reason. You can still go down that path, but you can also have tears and have sorrow and be sad because you're disappointed and you were hoping for something else, but it didn't happen. And so, it's funny because your hope can be married up to your grief. Those two things can be married. You can still have hope in the midst of your grief. And so that was me last week. I'm still dealing with it, but that was really me. And so in the middle of my tears, in the middle of my crying, in the middle of me talking to my husband and him talking to me because he was struggling too. We both were struggling. And so we were talking back and forth, and in the midst of it, he would cry, I would cry. We just were, we would ask the question, why is this happening like this? And, and then you kind of start to feel guilty, like, oh, if I feel like this, what does that say? And what have you? And I just decided that, you know what? It's okay. It's okay if I feel overwhelmed. It's okay if I feel sad. It's okay if I grieve or have grief about a particular situation that didn't work out the way I thought it would. It's not ridiculous. And I think that was part of what I learned. My mind and my thoughts would tell me, you're being ridiculous. Stop it. Just keep pushing on. You got to have all the right things to say. You got to encourage. You've got to do that. And you don't have time to cry, and you don't have time to feel bad, and what have you. And I just was like, that's not true. It's just not true. I can still have hope. I can still say, you know what? There's lemons, but lemonade is coming. I can still say, you know what? Even though I don't understand why this happened, there's still some good in the midst of it. And so after I kind of got my ship a little righted, I started in my thoughts and I started thinking differently. And there's this Bible verse that says, as a man thinks, so is he. So essentially it's just saying is what you think about yourself is what you are. And so if you think that you're a loser, or if you think that you're a failure, if you think that you're just never going to be able to overcome or do something, maybe that's what gets hooked up in your mind, and then the mind translates that to the heart, and then that's what you believe. That's what you believe that you are, or who you are. That's your identity. And so your thoughts are so important, especially when you're going through something that just ain't right. You're just like, that ain't right, and you're going through it and you're just like, I cannot believe that happened again. And I don't know why, and you're just going through all those things, and it's okay to have that type of dialogue. That's okay. But then you got to get to the point where you got to grab a hold of those thoughts, and you've got to be like, wait a minute. I cannot go down and stay in that dark place. I cannot allow myself to go down and stay in that dark place, because in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, he said this. He goes, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Only light can drive out darkness. And, you can't stay down in the dark and expect that you're going to be able to find light there. You got to come out of the dark, and you've got to let the light shine in. And so where we let the light shine in is up here in our mind, so that it filters down through our heart, and and it pushes out all those wrong thoughts. And so first of all, once I stopped crying, once I stopped that, and that took me some days, and even now I probably could cry if I thought about it too long, but I had to, once I stopped that, I had to rely on another Bible verse that I really love, and I think that it will help you no matter where your faith is or what faith you have. I think this truth will help you. And it says something like this. It's like, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are noteworthy, whatsoever things are praiseworthy, think about these things. Whatsoever things are beautiful, lovely, whatever. It says think about these things. So the main idea is that you want to think about things that are good and that are wonderful and that are noteworthy and praiseworthy, and you just want to get that in your thoughts. And so what I had to do with that particular situation, I had to look at the disappointment. So I looked at the disappointment and I was like, is this disappointment real? Is it real? Is the situation that happened, is it real? Yes, it's so real. Is the disappointment real? Oh my goodness. Yes, it is so real right now. And so I had to look at that and I'm like, that's real. But then I had to ask myself the question, what else is real? What else is real? Is this the end of the world for this person? Absolutely not. Is this something that this person or these people, it was actually two people, is this something that they can't overcome, that they don't have the ability to overcome? No, they can overcome this. Is this something that is going to push them all the way down and just destroy them? And I was like, no, it's not. Is there some good here? Is there things that can be learned? Is there things that can be gained? Or is there even beautiful things in the midst of disappointment? And so I had to start digging through that. I had to start looking at that. Is there beautiful things even when I'm disappointed? Is there noteworthy things even when I'm disappointed? Is there praiseworthy things even when I'm disappointed? And so I had to start asking myself those questions, and I had to start thinking thoughts, real thoughts, true thoughts about that. And so once I started, I was able to kind of step back or climb down out of my mind and really actually assess the disappointment, assess where all that was coming from and why, and recognize that it was okay for me to be disappointed, but it's also okay for me to climb up out of my disappointment and look at things and see the beauty around me and see the beauty potentially in what happened. It's like, how can a hard or a harsh thing or a terrible thing have something beautiful inside of it? And I'm here to tell you that it can. And so when I started looking at how intense the disappointment was and how sad I felt for these two individuals that I love so deeply, I started to look at them, and I started to look at their qualities, and I started to look at the things that they have individually overcome, and I started to just look at those, and it started to lift me up out of that dark place. It started to bring the light. It did. It just started to bring the light on the situation. Now, am I completely and totally in the light? Not yet. I still feel some type of way, and I'm still trying to work through it because the situation for both of these individuals is ongoing. And that's what happens. Sometimes your trial or your disappointment or your heartache or whatever, that thing is ongoing. And so, you may not just jump right out into the light, right? You may not just jump right out of it. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do is get your thoughts right. You may not be able to think rightly all the way about that heartache or about that disappointment, but there's other things around you. There's other beauty, there's other loveliness, there's other noteworthy and praiseworthy things that you can fix your thoughts on. They really do exist, and you can do that. And when you do that, it gives you a different perspective. So when you go back to look at that disappointment and all those crazy thoughts start coming in your mind about how you're a failure or how you're maybe worthless or how you're this or how you're that, all these negative thoughts start coming, you're able to combat those negative thoughts with all of the beauty and all of the loveliness when you start thinking on those types of things. And I think it's just wonderful. So that's what happened to me. So last week I was in the depths of despair, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, and I started really getting down on myself because, like I said, I'm a person of faith. I believe, and I just started getting down on myself for even questioning and what have you. But I gave myself some grace, and I was just like, you know what? This is what the truth is. I am questioning, and I do feel some type of way. But you know what? I'm going to think differently. I'm going to think differently. And I hope that you, as you are listening to me today, that you're like, you know what? I got this big disappointment. I've got this big situation or this heartache. I've been, I have a broken relationship, or I didn't get something that I was expecting to get, and it didn't work out the way that I expected, or it didn't work out at all. It was just like a complete zero or whatever. And you're dealing with these issues, and you're trying to figure out how to climb up out of your mind, how to get out of there, how to get out of those thoughts and start thinking something differently. And that's what I want to tell you today. That's what I want to help you with today, is just think about the beautiful things. Think about the things that are worthy of your praise, are worthy of your, of note, And there's a lot of those things. There's just a lot of those things all around you. And you need to look at them, and you need to think about those things. And if we think on those types of things, when we are in the dark, that's the light that will push us out, is when we think rightly about what's going on around us, when we have a right perspective. So, this week I started my chemistry, and I was already dealing with this terrible thing that had happened, this terrible disappointment. And so I start day one, yesterday, of my chemistry, and I just climbed back up on that ledge in my mind, and I'm like, I can't do this. It's too hard. There's too much of a learning curve. I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. And I just was going on and on and on and on. And I had to climb back out of that hole, out of that darkness, and say to myself, self, you can do this. And I had to say, self, you're not going to think about what you can't do. You're going to think about what you can. And so, fortunately, I was able to call my guidance counselor at college, and she encouraged me, and my husband encouraged me, and some friends encouraged me, and even some new students that I met through our message board, they encouraged me. And so I was able to get out of my mind and be like, you know what? One day at a time, one thought at a time, one step at a time. And so I guess I want to end with this. When you are in the throes of disappointment, when you are in the depths of despair, when you are in a place where your heart feels like it is completely shattered, there is something that you can do, even if it's just baby steps. You can start to think differently. You can do that. You really can. Even through your tears, even through your pain, you can start thinking differently. Whatsoever things are beautiful, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are noteworthy, whatsoever things are praiseworthy, think on those things. Think about it. It helps you because darkness can't drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Have a great rest of your day.